they're tricking you into like you thinking it's easy to get here. So when you get here, there's still some job security for them. They're gonna bust your tail. So it just goes to show that, I think these young guys see things and I don't think they understand how fast it needs to be for game reps, 8th graders. So if I had to make any change, I would say that I would make that more about development than about winning these shoe sponsor tournaments in 7th and 8th grade.
What would you say about, and you already spoke on this a little bit, balancing winning versus developing your players? How do you ride that fine line?
So that's a great question. As I see it, I think that development should be the focus all the way up until your 17U year. So that's your junior year, and that's when most coaches are going to get eyes on you. There's some that are going to get eyes on you early, and then that's more about potential, and they're 6'8", and can they do this? But what I call in the grassroots the money year, meaning scholarship money year, is that 17U year. So I think that winning in AAU is secondary behind exposure and scholarships, but I wouldn't call it winning as much as I'd say how you impact winning. Like, you might not be winning tournaments, but do you do winning things that a college coach can see? And is it translatable to them? Because at the end of the day, one of these things that the young kids don't understand is you're going to hear family and XYZ for college, but at the end of the day, that's how these coaches, afford their lifestyle. That's how they put food on their plate. So you have to do something that helps them win. And that's everything from what does your body language look like on the bench to are you being a good teammate? Things like deflections, rebounding, the things that aren't sexy, so to speak, to hoopers these days. So I do think winning is somewhat important in the grassroots. I think how you affect winning is way more important, but I think it should be developmental is what you're looking at and your role on teams until you hit 17U year. And it's assumed by then that that's kind of what your college role is going to be.
Ray, I want to kind of stay with you here because we talked about circuits, we talked about showcases, events, exposure. What are the biggest differences, if any, between all the circuits? Because I know there's a lot out there.
Yes, that's a great question. So I would say this, the two clear-cut talent-wise that have been above traditionally have been Nike and Adidas. In terms of top talent, it kind of flops year after year. Like, this year I think there was 3 or 4 top 8 guys in Adidas circuit. Next year it'll be Nike and it flops. But in terms of Nike, EYBL, I would say from top to bottom, all the teams is probably a little more competitive. If you take the top 10 teams from both shoe circuits, it's neck and neck. So I would say the league's a little deeper. Then you have just a plethora. You got Puma now, you got Under Armour, and they're coming along. They are, I think, where Adidas and EYBL were a couple years ago, where they're starting to figure out their niche and who they are and what they're doing. The biggest rise has been the secondary market, the regional market is what we call it. So that's EYCL, that's Adidas Gold, that's I think it's Under Armour Futures or whatever it is. So that's been a big rise, and that is very tricky, to be honest with you. It's a platform for players to play. The one thing I think everyone needs to understand is there's only so many college coaches around that can go watch these games. And when you take Nike and Adidas, that's, if you're allowing 4 on the road, that's 2 right there. And a lot of times the type of prospects they have, you need 2 or 3 just to show that you're recruiting them. So they assume a lot of the coaches already, which leaves not a lot for secondary markets and that kind of stuff. I do think those regional markets, it is way more competition than being like an independent local, but doing it just for the exposure, it will get tough all the way until the end of July. Usually the end of July, you'll see more, but in the spring, it's tough to get coaches out there.
Go ahead, Matt. Go ahead, Matt.
Go ahead, Chase. Go ahead. Go.
You're good.
What separates kids from making it to the next level? Whether it's D1, 2, 3, NAI, JUCO, and the ones that don't. What do you guys think is the one or two things that holds kids back?
So in my view, and this is the elite talent that I've dealt with, there really is three things that I think hold them back or separate us from, in my world, that I have been blessed to be a part of. It's usually Division I and pros, right? I would say the very first thing is work ethic done properly. I think a lot of kids think they work hard. I don't know if they know exactly what work hard is and on the proper things. The other thing is guidance from the village, the people around you. So there's a lot of prospects that we deal with that are in mode of, talking to agents and NIL and all that good stuff. And any little decision you make can change your journey just a little bit enough to whether it's impactful or not. So one is the village around you as well. And then lastly is internal perspective. Know who you are, know where you're at. In our AAU team, you could be the guy, but then you're going to step foot in college and you're not the guy. You have to have perspective to understand that and figure out those barriers to becoming wherever you're going to be. So as I see it, those are the three things that really stand out in terms of making it. And for us, making it is not only being on a Division I roster, but being impactful, getting a starter, being an all-league player, and then eventually making money doing this. Those three things kind of are like the blares, because you're going to have your trainers, your development. You already got the body. You got probably 90% of what other athletes who haven't made it. You already have just blessed. So those are the things outside of the genetic lottery.
Right. Jason, what about kids that you've dealt with who maybe not are at that pro or Power 5 level, but the smaller college kids?
I think it all starts with process, right? I mean, kids come in and they love to hoop. And, just like any other business we would start, we have our business plan and then we have our focus and our execution. And basketball is no different, right? And just understanding the process, understanding what you got to do to get to the next level, whatever that may be. We have kids that are fighting their tail off and maybe they're NAIA kid, or we have kids fighting their tail off to get into Division I. And we have everything in between. But, when we come in, we sit down, we go through the process of what our experience is that they need to do to put themselves in a position to show what they can do at the next level, whatever that next level may be. And then we have an extreme focus. We check in with them often, whether it be, a list of trainers. Guys have their own. We don't really mind, but we have other trusted guys in our camp that we know can help get them to the level where they need to be skill-wise. And then attention to those details. How do we apply them? When we get to high school, making sure we don't let off the gas and, that we're hooked up and on it 100% of the time until we get that scholarship done and we get them into college, which is something that, it's probably one of the best feelings in the world is when you see those kids move on to the next level, and those end up being lifelong relationships, kids that come back and that you've bonded with over the years and end up being doctors and lawyers and everything in between.
And you talked about development and certain trainers. What's the biggest mistake, Jason, that you see kids make in their development or what they think is development?
Well, all training is not equal, just like in life. Not all things are equal. So, some kids will go to a trainer and they won't communicate with them and tell them, hey, this is where I'm trying to add this summer because they hadn't thought it through, or this is the way I need to play. This is what my coaches are telling me. This is where I'm trying to get. And they'll put themselves in a group training or in a session where they're working on something that's helpful, but maybe not as quickly to work specifically on what they need to work on to get to the level that they're trying to get to. So we try to help, force communications in situations where, that they're communicating. Hey, I told a kid yesterday, I said, tell your strength and conditioning coach what you're doing with your high school team, because there's no need to do the same workout 2 days in a row. And, as a lot of parents want their teenagers to learn how to communicate, we're trying to force and help them, defend and fight for their own stuff, especially as they move on to college without us. And, really try to get the process into their head to really get what they need out of it and understand and be able to communicate that as they move forward.
Ray, do you have anything?
Yeah, I think that there's the standards. So there's dribbling, there's, things that you have to work on just to always sharpen up. So outside of that, I think the biggest thing I see is do what you do well and find out how to make it more efficient. And that's one of the things that, we tell our athletes, hey, man, when your back is against the wall and you have not, like, you're not going to play unless, like, you got to get to something. What is that? And understand that and be efficient with that. And lastly, just game reps. I mean, I think that game style reps, game speed. I have a quick story. I don't know how much time we have. A quick story. I have a player
You're good.
that is in the NBA, and he's telling me that he a 3-time All-Star took him under his wing, and they went and did training, and the cameras were out there, and it's like a mild pace, and they get done, and he's like, feeling pretty good about it because that's what everyone sees. They see these videos of the DeMar DeRozan, Kyrie Irving, and it looks like they're just like a medium pace. And he's untying his shoes, and the guy's like, hey, what are you doing, man? That's for the cameras. Now we get to work. And they went and killed themselves in the gym like at 11 o'clock at night. And so it just goes to show that sometimes I think these young athletes see these all-stars doing things, and that's the camera stuff. And then there's the real stuff. And this young player told me, hey, but don't tell anyone because that's like a secret. And that's like one of the things the NBA guys are doing. It's like, hey, man, like they're tricking you into like you thinking it's easy to get here. So when you get here, there's still some job security for them. They're gonna bust your tail. So it just goes to show that, I think these young guys see things and I don't think they understand how fast it needs to be for game reps.
Well, speaking of that, so Ray, I know you were talking about the kids who are blessed with genetics. We call them unicorns, but there are more than one unicorn out there. So whether you're a unicorn or you're a 6'3", guard with mild athleticism, how do you stand out?
That's a great question. I would say trust the people. Well, first, find people, your village, that's going to give you honest feedback. Trust those people and trust the process. I see a lot of players, whether it's moving a team or leaving a situation just right before like it was going to happen for them. And so part of this journey is just sticking with it. But outside of that, impact winning in some way, shape, or form, whatever that is for you, just impact winning. It's easier for you guys as scouting service. It's easier for me as a coach. It's easier for the guy in the stands that says, hey, that's a winning play. That's what he does. And so whether he steps on the floor and he's going to be a starter or he's going to be the 13th guy or 14th guy, he's going to help impact winning in practice or somewhere. So I think the biggest standout is impact winning in what they do best.
Jason, anything to add?
No, I mean, I agree with all that. I mean, we're coaching kids. I mean, we get after it in practice. Some grassroots team, we're fortunate because all of our kids are from Arizona. So we can get together and have practices and we get after each other, right? We're trying to create that intensity that they would see at the college level. So it's not a surprise later on in life. And, trying to, adversity is a good thing when handled the right way, right? And trying to help kids understand this is not going to be easy, but it is possible. And, just trying to do our best with that.
Ray, I've got a two-parter for you here. Where do you see grassroots basketball heading in the next 5 to 10 years? And how has NIL and the transfer portal and all that stuff impacted grassroots basketball and recruiting?
Jeez, that's a loaded one.
I know.
So I would say grassroots basketball. I would say for the higher level teams, there's going to be some agent-sponsored teams. There'll be some agents behind getting some of this elite talent together. So I think the shoe space will be affected tremendously by this. It's just access to younger kids for these athletes and agents that can that's their business. So I think for the next 5 to 10 years, you have that. I think for the rest, it is going to become a lot on development. And so we've talked, and I've talked to a lot of the gold teams in Arizona where I said, hey, there's this thing where everyone thinks that because you're playing grassroots, you're going to get the exposure. And I think that some do, but for the most part of it, it needs to start being more academy based in terms of development and what you're going to do to help them for where they're at in the moment, whether it's to be a starter on your varsity team or make the JV team or whatever the case may be. I do think you'll start to see more around development, and that's because in the grassroots world, you can control that. You can't control whether a college coach likes a kid. You can't control if college coaches are going to come to your game if you're a regional team, right? So you can control, though, getting them better and prepared for whatever the very next thing is for them. So I think you'll see that in the next 5 to 10 years. NIL transfer portal. It has made the college game older. It has made these young players have to trust the process and have to pick the right place. And so for the elite athlete that is top 5 in the country that is still choosing, and I have one of those conveniently. And so it's like, hey, are you picking something that can help you monetarily now, or something that can get you where you want to be a year or two later? And so you're having to decide between the instant gratification that 400,000, 500,000, $1 million can bring you, and or 30 mil in the draft. And I think that it's each person's unique journey. Not every family can be funded right now. So a lot of that weighs into it. I deal with a lot of athletes that, it's a, in the grassroots world, people say, oh, well, they're taking money. Well, some need to for their family to be okay. So there's different ways to cut it, so to speak. I think that with NIL and the portal, we don't know what it is yet. I think every time the college coaches get used to trying to get a formula, NCAA drops a new thing on their lap. And so I still think we're about 5 to 10 years out from guys figuring out what their formula is, what's going on. College coaches that are hitting the portal now because guys are ready now, but they are seeing some culture changes. You got guys coming in that instantly want to do certain things versus guys that are willing to trust the process. So I think when it comes to NIL and the transfer portal, I just think those are all things that can work in your benefit, but also could derail you. And so you have to be very picky. You have to be very choosy. You have to know who you are. And I think it circles back to trusting the people around you that might not look at it. Every athlete's job is to be competitive and think he's the best. Every athlete should think they're going to walk on the floor and start. Every athlete should think they're worth $1 million of NIL. Every athlete should think they're a pro. That's why they're hoopers. But it's really the people around them that are helping guide through that, and whether they're feeding them or giving them honest feedback.
As well, what changes would you like to make, if any, to the grassroots system?
I would say the biggest thing for me, is it me or Jason?
Either one. We're going to ask both, so go ahead, Dre. We can go first.
For me, I would say you're seeing this wave of shoe-sponsored middle school circuits that has created this superstar team of, it's really about, can they fly me here? Can they do things? And it's a very transactional process at a young age. And I think that hinders the athlete a little bit older, where they're making it very transactional. And I think they're skipping an organic step for high school. Now you get to college, it becomes a little transactional again. But I fear for the athlete that it ruins the game, where these young athletes just think everyone is transactional and there's not a lot of trust built from a human scale in dealing with people. And I see it now. I see it now when you talk to kids, and, we have a great product that most would jump on and say yes, but you see the leeriness of it. And I'm a guy that gets nothing from this. I mean, I just enjoy doing it. And you can see where they think that I'm like a millionaire because of Adidas, and it's implanted at a real young age of 7th and 8th graders. So if I had to make any change, I would say that I would make that more about development than about winning these shoe sponsored tournaments in 7th and 8th grade. I also think it sets up a bad, these young kids, I feel bad for them. You get these offers early because they're in 8th grade or freshman year. And then when they get the offer of where they really should be, they feel like a failure because they're not offered by Duke. because they were a 6'4" eighth grader that was already had a mustache. And it just takes a little bit of joy away from the game, I think, starting that early.
Jason, what are your thoughts?
So that was well said. I agree with all of that. I'll approach this from a couple of different ways. Number one, as a parent, right? As a parent, and these are the questions I get. There's so many teams out there, and the market's so oversaturated, all the way from the youth all the way up now through high school, that people are just trying to figure out how to make the right move and not mess it up for their son or daughter. And so we spend a lot of time counseling players, friends of friends and friends, and all that kind of stuff, of just what's out there in the marketplace and what it should look like. And for us, we can't take everybody. You know, we only have a couple spots on each team open every year because we have a lot of retention. But I end up helping a lot of people that aren't even, and I know Ray does too, that aren't even in our programs, just because we want what's best for the kids. I mean, that's why we're all in this, right? And so, you know, at the end of the day, just as a parent, you know, just trying to get this to where it's you know, and this is hard to do, but if I were king for the day, make it easy, you know, to where, you know, it's clear lines of this is what you get and this is what it should be, kind of a thing. And used to kind of be like that, right? Because there were only a handful of grassroots teams. So if you made one of those in your area, you were a dude, right? You were good. But now, you know, there's you know, 30 of them in every area, and that's spilled over into the prep schools. And there's some really good situations in prep schools out there. And there's some really poor situations probably that don't take a lot of things into account, from the child's education to the mentorship that they receive in some of their schools and communities that they're being ripped out of, in situations like that. And, you know, basketball, we have some kids that are in unfortunate situations that they promise the moon and they jump at opportunities, and it ends up taking them in the wrong direction for one way or another. And you hope to just kind of mitigate that damage as you go and do the best you can to help educate them the best you can. But unfortunately, as in life, there's people out there that don't have the best of intentions, that use people to get to where they're trying to go, and not necessarily looking out for the best interest of the young man that's trying to realize his dream.
Well said.
Jason, what's the most memorable moment you've had coaching grassroots basketball?
Man, you know, I don't know about an individual moment. As I always tell the kids, you don't remember a lot of the individual stuff, but I remember the teams. I remember the van rides. I remember the ice fights in the hotel. I remember the kids grab assing around, if I can say that. Sorry, but those are the things that I remember the most. You know, we've had some kids, and I won't say his name, but we have a kid that's been in our program since either 5th or 6th grade. And he just, with Steve's help, just got a college offer, and he's going to play college basketball. And the phone call I got from him and his parents and just the people on our team, you know, our teammates were happy for him, because the kid showed up every day and worked his tail off with us, with Tony Miller at the garage, with Royce Woolridge, one of our trainers and directors in our program. And those are the kids that you're happy for. And those are the moments you look back and it's life-changing for the young man, because his goal was to play basketball. Straight A student, had college scholarships for academics, but he wanted to keep the dream going just a little while longer. And those are the things that stick out in my mind. And there's a bunch of those over the years. But those are the people that give you goosebumps when you think about, like, you know, we did this together and they did the work, but we were just fortunate enough to be a small piece of helping him get there. And that makes me feel really good.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Ray, same question to you. I know you've got a stable of guys that you've been a part of their lives at some point. So what's most memorable for you?
So I want to start by saying that there's nothing more memorable than the kid's first offer, regardless of the kid. It's just the look on their eyes, the excitement, all the hard work. So outside of that, which we've had a lot of that, but outside of that, I would say for me, in terms of a coach, in terms of a program, playing in the 2018, what was called the Undisputed National Championship game, is like a mythical national championship, played Team Takeover, who won the EYBL, won all their tournaments. We happened to win all the Adidas, won the 3SSB. And in a weird world where both tournament directors and teams and everyone said, hey, we're going to play, got together in Las Vegas. That game, you know, to name a few. So for Takeover, you had Armando Baycott. I had to write this down. You had Hunter Dickinson. You had Anthony Harris, who went to North Carolina, EJ Jarvis Jail, Justin Moore, Villanova, Jeremy Roach, who's now at Baylor at Duke. And then on our team, we had Evan Mobley, Isaiah Mobley, Onyeka Okongwu, Johnny Juzang, Jalen Clark, Jared Lucas, Dalen Terry. So it was the who's who of NBA guys. And it was like, I think it was like a double overtime game. It was a great memory because we won. But that's what I would say from a selfish coach standpoint. It was just awesome. They had to shut down the gym. They had to realign people, get it all on one court, do all this stuff. And it was cool just to see the level of pros in high school just going at it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Few lottery picks in that game.
Absolutely.
Just a couple.
Absolutely.
That's great. Well, Ray, my last question, the Compton Magic, I mean, they've had some big time players, as everybody knows, through the program over the years. What are some of the players that you maybe have coached or have come through the Magic program that are currently playing high major ball? And I mean, you just named a bunch that are in the NBA, but what are some of those other guys? So I think, they hear Compton Magic. I know our audience would love to just kind of know some of the guys you've dealt with and worked with and things like that.
So uniquely that I've coached, a lot of guys in high major. So when I read high level, I was like, well, I think NBA because I think certain levels. So dating all the way back to the 2012 arena. I don't know if you guys remember Alan Williams, who played at North. He played with Phoenix Suns.
Big sauce.
Awesome young man. Ended up being a natural rebounder. They got him paid a lot of money. You have him, Timmy Allen, that played for the Memphis Grizzlies. Was a product here. Dalen Terry, who currently plays for the Chicago Bulls. Those are the Arizona kids. And then Jalen Hands, who played for the Nets. Onyeka Okongwu, who's a 6th pick, plays for the Hawks. Evan Mobley, the 3rd pick for the Cavs. Johnny Juzang, who's currently with the Jazz. Isaiah Mobley, who's with 76ers. Jules Bernard, who's with the Cavs. And then Jared Lucas, who's the Mavericks G League. So those are all kids that I didn't want to go back too far because there's even more. But I would say in the last, 7 to 8 years that were awesome young men that trusted the process, that are playing, that are getting paid to do this.
Right. That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, guys, we can't thank you enough for being on tonight. I think our audience just got a massive education in grassroots club basketball and all that goes into that. And you guys have been outstanding, and we just appreciate you being on and sharing your thoughts.
Absolutely. If anyone talks to you guys and needs guidance, man, just give my number. I'm an open book. I talk to anyone.
Absolutely.
Likewise, we're the same way, and appreciate you thinking of us and having us on tonight.
Absolutely.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for joining us, fellas.
Have a good one.
Basketball players, are you grinding in the gym but struggling to get noticed by college coaches? Your talent deserves the right exposure, and that's where Net Results Recruiting comes in. Whether you're in high school, junior college, or prep school, we help you connect with college programs, get you promoted to college coaches, and receive expert guidance throughout your recruitment journey. Don't leave your future to chance. Get exposure, get guidance, get results. Let our team find your team. Visit netresultsrecruiting.com today and take the next step towards your college basketball dream.